Philippines, good evening. Naimbag garabi, masanto siya sa labid. Si kayo amin maya, pabengi, keka, parahay na banggi sa yung nagubos. Maupay nga gabi ha iyo nga tanan dida. Mayad-mayad nga gabi, maradyaw na doyom sa idyo hurot. Buenas noches, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Mayong gabi sa Tibok Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, up to Sabah. Ito po si Erik Espina at ito ang inyong Republika. Well, tonight we're going to be talking to one of the pillars of the House of Representatives, our very own, the pride of one of the pride of Cebu. We will be revisiting for tonight the issue on ABS-CBN. It's in the back burner, but it's somehow still festering in the minds of some sectors of our society, and then including the Anti-Terror Bill. And other issues such as the revolutionary government and the other bills which pending in Congress, which are most interesting. So we're very fortunate to have the Deputy Speaker for the 3rd District of Cebu, none other than Pablo John Garcia. Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening, Eric, and good evening to your millions viewers around the Philippines and through the web around the world sa Republika. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. My first question to you, Congressman, is of course, how is Manong Pablo Garcia? I mean, amidst COVID and all this, how's the family taking care of him? How is his mental health? As children of Cebu Province, we'd like to know how is the good governor and former deputy speaker.
Well, I'm happy to report to you, Eric, and to the Cebuanos, especially that Pero Buyag, my daddy is in good health, and he is 93 years old. A little weak, not as agile as before, but mentally he still has. You've talked to him a lot of times, and your father is a dear friend. His mind is still as sharp as it was when you last talked to each other.
Kay kuan usa sa akong mga nahuna-hunaan lagi nga maybe they should consider kuan our parents, our lolo, our lola amidst COVID, that maybe part of their mental health, maybe we can try to experiment masking once a month or twice a month. The senior citizens can go out outside the residence when it is most lockdown and the commuter traffic is basically still at home. And let's give this to the senior citizens for their mental health. Kay, at that age, you can't really avoid it. They become very sensitive. And then, kita magaling mga batano, nasbalay, makuanta, malainta. How much more for our lolo, our lola, and our parents, no?
I agree. I totally agree. We may be keeping them safe from COVID, but, loneliness is also a disease, actually, and is one of the causes of mental health problems. So I totally agree with you, Eric.
I hope that somebody is listening. At least once a month, twice a month, every Sunday lang yun, ha? Yeah. When there are fewer people, they can go out and go on, as long as nasa kuyog, at least one household pass ba? Because I've seen many of them, so maluoy lagi ko, some just, you would not believe it, Congressman, na ako'y nailhan nga medyo nawad ang lagana mabuhi. He just passed away in his bed. Wow. In his bed, because he could not go out. He was always inside his room. So it's a very sad commentary on
depression.
Correct. Mao gyud. So kani Congressman, we'll just go through some of the issues that are in the back burners. I think you're very much aware of it. First, we'll talk about ABS-CBN. How did you, just to recollect, how did you vote on that issue? And then, what were the conscience points that brought you to that decision?
Well, as some of you may know, I was the head of the technical working group for the Committee on Legislative Franchises, which prepared the report on the issues raised against ABS-CBN and our findings, as a committee on legislative franchises. So I was head of the technical working group, which recommended the non-renewal or the denial of the grant of a new franchise to ABS-CBN. There were a lot of issues raised. But first, Eric, I think for the benefit of your viewers who have heard a lot of things being said for or against the issue, let us remember that what is the nature of a franchise? It is because the way the partisans of ABS-CBN are making it appear, it would seem that they're arguing that they are entitled to a grant of a new franchise or a renewal as a matter of right. They're saying, we have a lot of employees, a lot of people depend on their employment and livelihood on us. So we should be granted a franchise. But sadly, under our constitution and under our system of laws, franchise is not a right. It is a mere privilege which is granted under very exceptional circumstances to those who are worthy of the privilege. So first things first, let us make that clear. A franchise is not granted as a matter of right. No matter how many years you've been enjoying that franchise, and it is a matter of privilege. So, one of the issues that really, for me, was a cause for my voting against the grant of the franchise as a matter of conscience is the fact, the well-documented fact that ABS-CBN did not pay the right amount of taxes to the government through a series of schemes. Shell corporations in foreign countries that are tax havens, well-known tax havens, using tax-exempt status of PEZA, forming a corporation and claiming tax-exempt status under PEZA, even if majority or practically its only customer was ABS-CBN. And even the fact, the comparison was made of the tax payments made by GMA7, which is a smaller network, which is admittedly a smaller network over a period of 5 years, and ABS-CBN. Grabe yun. Ang diferensya sa whereas GMA, for instance, over a period of 5 years since 2016, I think, paid around 3.5 billion pesos in taxes. ABS-CBN paid a mere a little over $1 billion, I think, over the same period of time. Even if it is a bigger network, and had sales, more sales than GMA7. So why is this crucial in the vote to deny the franchise? Because, as I said, a franchise is a privilege. It is granted to you, very exceptional, an extraordinary privilege granted to you by the state. Unya, dili nimo hatag balik. You cannot give back to the state in the form of taxes what the privilege that the state has given to you. More than any other citizen or corporate citizen, those who are granted a franchise should pay the right amount of taxes to the government. Kita gani, even our viewers who are ordinary taxpayers, are expected to pay the right amount of taxes. Di pa gani nila madawat ang sweldo, withhold naman gani ang taxes.
Same with their employees. Same with their employees. Yeah. Unya sila hinoon nga who are, because
they were granted a special privilege by the state to operate a franchise. Sila na hinoon nga dako kay kita because of this franchise. Mangita na og paagi nga dili mapabayad sa saktong buhis ngadto sa atong estado. I think that was one of the for me the biggest reasons, the most crucial reasons why ABS-CBN should not be granted a new franchise. There were also a lot other issues, which are equally important. For example, its history and its record as an employer, and its record under our labor laws, compliance with labor laws. There is the issue of the non-regularization of a lot of contractual employees, some of whom have been working for the corporation for even 20 years, who remained contractual employees and not regular employees. Despite several Supreme Court decisions that these employees were performing regular the job functions, duties of a regular employee, wala gyud nila gi-recognize as regular employees. So as again, if you are a corporation that is granted a special privilege, you should also give back to the employees, by respecting their security of tenure and giving them the right to be regularized.
There were a lot of reasons for your voting this way. In your legislative hearings, did it seem like when you conducted the legislative hearings, this was already, how would I call it, undue advantage? There seemed to be special treatment for ABS-CBN because, it seems a media giant such as ABS-CBN could probably use the logic of emotion in order to overpower the statement or the laws that we have passed in this country. Would that be a fair statement, that there seemed to have been an appeal to emotion in order to direct fault away from ABS or its administrators and give it on and put it on the lap of Congress?
Yes, in fact, first of all, we conducted all around a dozen hearings on the issue. This is unprecedented.
Correct.
Really unprecedented. Yeah. And then we were getting a lot of flack. Why are you holding these hearings in the middle of a pandemic?
Yes.
So Congress was getting a lot of flack for that. But this was because also of the pressure. Because when before we conducted these hearings and when these bills for the extension of the franchise or the grant of a renewal franchise were still at the committee level and not moving because precisely of the other more urgent legislative measures we had on our calendar, there was also pressure from ABS-CBN through their network and their partisans all over social media as giving flack to Congress and saying, why are you not moving on these bills? So, you're wala kay mabuhat nga sakto.
Yes.
You can't do anything right. If you focus on the bills that are crucial in this pandemic, ABS-CBN will say, why are you sitting on our bills for renewal? Yes. And now that we conducted almost a dozen hearings, people were saying, even their own partisans say, why are you focusing on ABS-CBN in this pandemic? Yes. So, they had a distinct advantage also because they are a media giant. They are the media giant. in the Philippines. And they have a lot of influencers in their payroll, through their commentators, and especially ilang mga artista, once their artistas start speaking, sometimes people forget about reason and logic and what the real issues are. They're influencers, so people are influenced by what they're saying.
You use the term unprecedented, and yet Congress gave them a day, their day in court. But when you use the word unprecedented, in the normal course of franchise hearings for media, for radio, this has never happened. That's what you're saying. Okay, wag yun hinahitabo pa.
Yes, that's what gini mahitabo. That this has never happened before. From recent history lang, at least. This has never happened before. But this happened precisely because Congress was also under pressure to show the people that they're moving, and they're giving ABS-CBN a fair hearing. Because they, before we conducted the hearings, they were saying, "Oh, they're sitting on our bills, and we are not getting our fair a fair hearing." So, yes, it was unprecedented. Grabe naman ko kay Eric, you've seen that. They were already conflating, the business interests of ABS-CBN with press freedom.
Yes.
As if press freedom would die if the legislative franchise of ABS-CBN were not granted. So we had to show that we are not. Of course, we are here to protect press freedom, but let us see whether ABS-CBN is entitled to a franchise, which is a totally separate and distinct issue from press freedom.
I'll just go through this alleged findings, and then you can just confirm it if it's true or not. In your legislative hearing, did you discover about the pay-per-view being milked on free air?
Yes.
Okay.
And they admitted, For example, there was this fight, I believe it was the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight. They offered it on pay-per-view, even if they still did not have the clearance and the permit to conduct this pay-per-view, asking for payment for the right to view under free air. Yes. In fact, the NTC specifically issued a cease and desist order. Stopping them from offering that fight on pay-per-view because they still did not have the permits, and the rules and regulations had not yet been fully promulgated.
Okay.
But then during the hearing, they admitted that they defied the NTC cease and desist order. Why? Because they said, because people had already paid. Is that a fair? Is that a valid justification to defy
to violate
NTC order, to violate the law? You can always reimburse the people, or offer it for free.
Yes. Congressman, we're going to pause for a few reminders, and then we'll come back about ABS-CBN having foreign shares, about donations that were misused, etc., when Republika returns. Okay, nagbabalik po ang ating programang Republika. Balik na sa atong programang Republika. Kausap pa rin po natin, kahinabi gihapon nato si Deputy Speaker Pablo John Garcia sa 3rd District Representative of Cebu. So, Congressman, kanilang, we will just go through it very quickly. It's just a question of just a yes or no. About the ABS-CBN having foreign shares, is that true?
Yes. The finding of the Legislative Committee was through the mechanism of the so-called PDR, Philippine Depositary Receipts. the ABS-CBN was able to entice foreign investors to invest in ABS-CBN, and by doing so, not merely invested but gained some form of control over the shares representing the underlying shares of the Philippine depository receipts. They were issued. They were given nominees. They could
appoint.
Yeah, they could theoretically vote on the reorganization or non-reorganization of the. They could influence the vote on the amendment of articles of incorporation, the corporation, and so under the Constitution, this is clearly a violation, because under the Constitution, for mass media companies, it should be not only 100% owned, it should be 100% controlled by Filipinos. So by giving up some form of control through the issuance of PDRs to foreign entities, or foreign persons, then they were giving up the 100% control required under the Constitution.
Did you make a finding also on certain donations, Bantay Bata Foundation, being diverted for other causes which was not part of the ethos of the foundation? Did you also discover this?
Well, there was not enough evidence, but what was clear was that one of the propaganda ABS-CBN undertook during this whole affair was that the millions of people that they had helped during times of crisis, but it was shown that these were really donations from the public. These were donations from the public. So that was the only finding under our technical working group.
There were other findings, no? One of them being that they also own, here we're talking now the family, because people seem to forget, we're just focusing on ABS. This is actually owned by the Lopez family. That they also own Sky Cable, CATV, Destiny Cable, etc., etc. This brings me to my question now. This is under Article 16, which talks about the general provisions. Of course, the Section 1 talks about ownership and control, of media. But correct me if I'm wrong. In the second paragraph of the same section, and I will quote it so that you will be refreshed.
Yes.
Murag wa ni nahatagan kayo og emphasis. It says, the Congress shall regulate or prohibit monopolies in commercial mass media when the public interest requires. No combinations in restraint of trade or unfair competition therein shall be allowed. Question, Congressman. Congress has not gotten into looking at this second paragraph vis-a-vis, can a media giant, a regular TV network, own also a cable network or several cable networks in the country? Wala pa na ninyo nakitaan.
Eric, that's a brilliant point, and that's a new point that that would, I admit that this issue was not fully taken up during the hearings on the legislative franchise of ABS-CBN. But I agree with you that in principle, this is also one thing that should be looked at, because we know for a fact, even looking at the experience of other countries, the US, for example, there was a period where these giant media companies were really broken up by the US government, precisely because no person or entity should have that much influence and control over mass media, because we know for a fact that mass media is a very critical instrument of not only of propaganda. It could influence the views and the acts of the general purpose populace. So it is in the national interest. No? It is in the national interest that no single family or corporation or entity should have that much control over the broad spectrum of the media, no? Whether regular or cable or otherwise.
As a broadcast and media practitioner for almost 2 decades, Congressman,
yes,
I would like to say this, that the function of media is not to be able to elect the next president. That was never the function of media, and God forbid it becomes. But this brings me to the point in terms of monopoly. What would be a monopoly? Now I'm just throwing off ideas. Is it a combination of a TV network with a radio network? Is it a combination of TV network, radio network, and a cable network? What would be construed as a monopoly? TV network, radio network, cable network, plus owning newspapers, because it can happen. So maybe Congress can look into this so that this can be broken up, and no one single family can control all these media outlets.
I agree, and I thank you for that for pointing that out, Eric. You know, that issue really slipped the minds of the congressman during these hearings, but that should be looked into. What constitutes control that is dangerous to the national interest? No? What measures should we come up with in order to make sure that no single network or no single family, corporation, or entity has that much influence on the broad spectrum of media in the country? That and I believe in order to at least not start from scratch, we should look at the example of the U.S. Media and history of regulating and breaking up monopolies in media.
In the U.S., if I'm not mistaken, they have affiliates of a big network.
Yes.
But in every state, it cannot be just one big giant network controlling the entire network, but affiliates. So these are actually basically different corporations that have subscribed to a major network. Maybe that's way down the road. Yes.
I think they have the rule that these affiliates should be at arm's length.
Yes.
No? That they're not subsidiaries, or they are not the creation of merely a network. And we saw that actually during the hearing, although it was not pointed out. No? How for example, there was this other legislative franchise corporation which came out during the hearings, no, which is actually controlled by ABS-CBN. No? And it was a separate franchise, but in fact, no, but through a so-called block time agreement, no, which was practically 100% of the broadcast hours, no, they granted a block time to ABS-CBN, and it used to be 1/2 or 51% owned by ABS-CBN. This was practically another franchise of the ABS-CBN. So these are dangerous monopolistic behavior, no, that Congress should look into. And I thank you, Eric, for that. And I will certainly be the one to initiate that discussion, at least on how much control, no, should we give, and what constitutes monopoly or combinations or restraints in the media industry.
Two quick questions, Congressman, because we'll move into the anti-terror law. Is there a way, by strengthening our democratic processes, in trying to somehow bring down the cost of advertisements during elections?
Yes.
considering that we're actually, if I'm not mistaken, radio companies, for example, can bring in their equipments at you know, very good tax, how would I call it, deductions or shelters for that matter, in order to strengthen the radio industry. Is there a way, like a, you know, a quid pro quo, where TV networks, radio companies can import all the equipments they need? Maybe what, 5% interest, maybe 0 interest, but in return, when election time comes, you know, they cannot bring up their cost, because the whole purpose of media is to strengthen republicanism and the concept of democratic institutions in our country.
Yes. Well, another brilliant idea. No? Congress has always grappled with this issue, no? Because we know for a fact, for the past, I would say, Eric, the past 3 national elections, no? We've seen the skyrocketing of the even five past national elections. Yes. We've seen how the cost of advertisement has skyrocketed. No? Used to be like 200,000 per 30 seconder. Now you're hearing it's almost $1 million pesos for a 30 seconder. So this is dangerous to in a democracy, no, in a Republican democratic society, because if this goes on, only the rich, no, or only those with rich friends, no, can be elected to the Senate, no? or to the presidency or vice presidency. No? So crucial again. That's why again, as we emphasized in the beginning of the discussion, no? Mass media is a matter of national interest. No? So there should be some mechanisms where we could bring down the cost of political advertisements and expressions, so that you know, to level the playing field in a political exercise between the rich and the poor candidates.
Leaving the issue on ABS, your final word, sir, on as far as ABS to the employees, because this for them this is a very emotional issue. You know, they're going to lose their jobs, etc., etc.
Yes.
You know, the plate seems to be served to Congress as the whipping boy for this, but should they be made to understand that ABS and the Lopezes, I mean, where does the flow come in? Is it the Lopezes? Is it ABS-CBN? Is it Congress? And then, you know, should Congress be blamed for these people losing their jobs?
You know, first of all, you know, we sympathize with the employees and their families, no, for the jobs that are lost because of the non-renewal or the non-grant of the ABS-CBN franchise. No? But you know, this is an unfortunate consequence, no, of the acts of ABS-CBN. First of all, you know for a fact that when you were granted your original franchise or the franchise before this, you were only granted 25 years, no? And you are not entitled as a matter of right to a renewal. So if you, given that fact, then you should already have made preparations, no, and you know, to ensure that when your franchise expires, then your employees will have something to receive, no? Pabaon, no? or retirement. But in this case, you know, they're claiming, sometimes they're claiming 11,000, sometimes they're claiming employees. But how many of those are regular employees?
Is Congress now the convenient excuse?
Yes,
for
exactly.
what should have been for what should have been anticipatory plans for ABS-CBN to take care of their employees, for what is called as self-inflicted wounds. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. No, we're the scapegoat of a corporation that, first of all, did not regularize their employees. No, so kung giregular pa nilang mga empleyado, no, naon tayo madawat, no, retirement or separation pay. But in this case, they were just contractual employees who are not entitled under our labor laws to separation pay or retirement. First, ikaduha, no, you were given a franchise for 25 years. No, you were earning billions every year because of that franchise. No, nganong wa man ka makahimo og why did you not put up a structure, no, where upon the expiration of your franchise, no, there should be a common fund from which the employees would draw their retirement or their separation pay or whatnot. No? This ABS-CBN did not do, despite the billions in profits that they earned because of their franchise. Now we're being made the scapegoats and the whipping boy because of this neglect of ABS-CBN. Of their employees and the interests of their employees.
We'll leave ABS-CBN, Congressman, and we're just again going to pause for our final break. We'll go into anti-terrorism, and then we'll look at the other slew of issues, and then eventually, when we have time, we'll also look at the great bills that you have filed when Republika returns. Okay, nagbabalik po ang Republika. Kausap rin po natin si Deputy Speaker Pablo John Garcia. At kanina pinag-usapan natin yung tungkol sa ABS-CBN, binibisita lang natin. Tapos ngayon, titignan naman natin yung anti-terrorism law. Congressman, there are about 30 petitions that have been filed with the Supreme Court. There are 30 oppositors against questioning the constitutionality of RA 11479. Your thoughts, you voted for it.
Yes,
being a lawyer, you feel confident, strong enough that this law will stand the test of constitutionality as far as the Supreme Court is concerned?
Yes, yes. First of all, I voted for the bill in the committee level as well as on third reading for the House of Representatives. You know, the reason why we needed to pass this anti-terror bill is because, you know, our terrorism bill is outdated. You know, decades have passed since its passage, and during those decades, during those years, when after its passage, you know, the modes, the tactics of terrorism have changed drastically. Changed drastically. That our law enforcement agencies concerned with the battling terrorism are ill-equipped. No? And that old law, without getting into a lot of the details, no? In fact, shackled our anti-terrorism law enforcement agencies, no? That they could not act against terrorism. Recently, in the past few months, in the past year, we have seen acts of terrorism being done in our country. No? And I just felt we needed this flexibility on the part of law enforcement agents. No? But if you look at it, the reason why I'm confident, Eric, despite the numerous petitions, no, seeking its the declaration of its unconstitutionality in the Supreme Court. The reason why is because if you read the bill, even if it grants a lot of flexibility to our law enforcement agents to act against terrorists and terrorist acts, there are always safeguards. All these safeguards, no. In fact, there are more. I would say 40% of the provisions in the anti-terrorism bill, if you really look at it, and not just read propaganda against it, not just look at memes on Facebook or on Twitter. If you really read the bill, no, there are so many remedies and reliefs granted to citizens. Before the regular courts, no? Before the Court of Appeals, before the Commission on Human Rights. No? At every stage of the prosecution against terrorism, that there are the any ordinary citizen has all these remedies and reliefs available to him.
What do you say to what's on media, what's on the newspapers, what's on radio, part of the petitions, and these are different groups. How do you answer them? For example, they say the definition is too broad, which includes death or serious bodily injury to any person, extensive damage and destruction to government facility, private property, critical infrastructure. In short, it may be abused. In fact, there is one group connected to the Human Rights Watch that says even a bar brawl might be misconstrued as a terroristic act. How do you assuage these kinds of thinking or posits?
No, that's an exaggeration, and that's a product of misreading of the law, and a refusal to see that definition under that section, Eric. I believe that's section 3. I think defining the acts of terrorism.
Yes.
No? It has these acts, overt acts, but it is always qualified. No? It is always qualified by the definition of terrorism. No? That all these acts should be done in furtherance, terrorism, meaning with intention to cause widespread panic, etc., against the state. No? So these single acts cannot be taken in isolation from the general definition and the qualifying definition, which is this should be intended to cause widespread panic. The classical definition of terrorism, not only under our laws but under international standards and law.
One of the ticklish part of the issue is on the point of being detained for a total of 24 days. Could this be a constitutional violation of the 3-day rule? So how do you answer that also?
Well, even this, I see this as a necessary power on the part of our law enforcement agencies, because you know how terrorism works. You have to act. If you read the history of terroristic acts around the world, your law enforcement agencies are given sometimes just a matter of days, mas mayo kung days, sometimes a matter of hours, to act, to avert widespread destruction and panic and terror. So this is necessary. Well, they have questioned its constitutionality. I am confident that this would pass constitutional scrutiny because precisely of the safeguards that are granted under the same law. Let us also look at the rules under other countries. Their anti-terror laws. Look at the United States anti-terror laws. And they do grant, although under different periods, they do grant law enforcement agencies the right to detain before charges are filed.
The way I see it, Congressman, there are just two questions here for the general public. Is an anti-terror bill a necessary and essential for the Philippines, given its historical background? And all they have to go do is look at August 21, 1983, when the first terroristic act was committed in Plaza Miranda, and it's still ongoing to this day. So that question is really already answered. It's just a question of modalities and as to the approach. So again, the third ticklish question here is regarding the powers of the Anti-Terrorism Council. It has come out, and you're aware of it. Some people posit that they are actually a court within itself. They have supplanted the powers and the authority of regular courts in identifying or having suspected terrorists arrested. Now, is that true?
No, that is a mischaracterization,
Okay.
no, of the Anti-Terrorism Council. No? Because, even the acts of the Anti-Terrorism Council are subject to judicial review. No? They're subject to the review of the Court of Appeals, no? And ultimately to the Supreme Court. No? But you need an agency to act fast. No? Because to act, this is, this is not the powers of the Anti-Terrorism Council are not different from, for example, let's not talk about terrorism, but any crime for that matter. No? Any law enforcement agent has, within his discretion, no, the right to see, to determine whether a law is being violated, and to act on that, on his findings. No? This is, in a broad sense, that is what the Anti-Terrorism Council is there for. No? But it is not a court unto itself, no? Because it is subject to judicial review by our regular courts.
And this one at the level of the Court of Appeals.
Yes.
When you're applying for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, warrants, or if you're going to do surveillance.
Yes. Even to look into anti-money laundering. No, even to look at whether this is terrorist financing. No, it is always in order to look into accounts, in order to freeze accounts. No, you always need at the level of the Court of Appeals, no, an authorization.
I will just throw this to you, Congressman.
And that is very difficult. No, that's very difficult, no, to get. If it were a regular court and you get it from a judge, that might be easier. But at the level of the Court of Appeals, that is a very high bar, no, that the government is up against.
This reminds me of, and I'll just throw this in, of what I wrote before in my column, that maybe we should look at the so-called FISA law in the United States, which is the Foreign Intelligence Service Act.
Exactly.
And maybe we can get some tips from there, not only in terms of terrorism, but actual intelligence and spying that is happening in the Philippines. And so at this level, they even use the Supreme Court in order to survey. The surveillance is conducted on the internet, on your cell phone, and everything.
Yes. Yes, admittedly, I have not looked into that, Eric, but, all I know is from TV series, no?
Yes.
about this FISA court.
Yes.
But in the United States, all these opponents to the anti-terror bill would be surprised to see how I would say that their laws against terrorism are more liberal in favor of the law enforcement agencies than this anti-terror bill which we passed.
Okay, two questions very briefly on anti-terror before we move on. Could the law have been better worded with more precise and legal definitions? What do you think?
Well, Eric, no piece of legislation is ever perfect. No, and that is why as your father was a legislator for a long time, no, a distinguished one at that. How bills
formulated,
are prepared. And how compromises sometimes are in order to pass a bill. Certain compromises would have to be made. No, and that is why what we have a bicameral Congress. Then possibly there is room. This passed through all of this. No, could it have been worded better? Probably. But that is the best that the Congress came up with, no? And I'm confident that the Supreme Court will sustain the validity of the anti-terror bill.
In terms of approach, Congressman, again, this is just part of brainstorming. Would it have been better to actually go through the process of a legislative hearing, public hearing, for the purposes of establishing a legislative finding based upon the public hearing. For example, the query on whether the CPP NPA is a terrorist organization, whether the Abu Sayyaf is a terrorist organization, whether the Jemaah Islamiyah is a terrorist organization, the ISIS, etc. Down the road, 20, 30 organizations. And based on that, make a legislative finding based from the public hearing that these are terrorist organizations. And based from this legislative finding, come out with a law that says, if you are a member of the following organizations, then you are a terrorist.
I do not believe that is possible. As a lawyer, I think that because under our constitution,
yes,
there is a prohibition against bills of attainder. Yes. Yeah, a bill of attainder would criminalize membership in a group or organization and not specific acts.
Okay.
So as congressmen, we are bound by the Constitution not to criminalize groups or memberships in groups, but to criminalize specific overt acts, because to do otherwise would be unconstitutional.
You're trying to say, Congressman, that the legislative finding cannot stand the scrutiny of the Constitution.
What I'm saying is we cannot legislate that membership in the or these organizations. No, I will not mention them. These organizations are terrorist organizations, and members of these organizations are terrorists. No? We cannot do that. That would be unconstitutional. That would be a bill of attainder.
I ask you that question because precisely that's the argument for it. It's a bill of attainder. But I'm just wondering how RA 1700, which was the anti-subversion law in the 1950s, subsisted up to what, 25, 30 years. So
yes, and it was questioned a lot of times, and it was sustained, but eventually we had to drop that policy of that mere membership is a subversive act. So that is why we had to come up with this, and then well, if somebody accuses them under this law, they could prove that they are not. That they are not terroristic organizations.
We'll move now to the current issues. No, there's a talk about a revolutionary government. Your take on it? How do you see this? What are the tides moving, the political tides moving, and your own perspective?
First of all, I am a lawyer,
yes.
and I swore an oath as also I'm a legislator. I swore an oath to uphold the supremacy of the Constitution, and the laws of the Republic of the Philippines. So I cannot subscribe to any movement which would go outside of these. The Constitution and our system of laws to form some sort of government. So that is my personal stand on that. But it is important in any movement, for instance, whether this revolutionary government, whether the communist government, whether it's separatist groups in the South, while we do not subscribe to their motives. And their methods, it is always important to look into the sentiment. Why is there such a sentiment?
Yes.
And that would be instructive to us, who are working within the framework of the Constitution and the system of laws, to probably address these sentiments and concerns within the framework of the Constitution.
A lawyer recently filed a petition with the Supreme Court requesting that that the health of the president should be of public knowledge. on these terms, should the public have a gleaning of what is the current state of the President's health? Should such a petition, of course it was denied, but should this be given some basis in order for the public to know what is the real condition? How do you see this? How do you approach this?
Yes, well, as a matter of the transparency required under our democracy, no? Of course, the public is always entitled to information on the health of the president. No? But I would say I think the president through Malacanang is addressing this. In fact, not only the president but the spokesman they have made certain declarations as to the state of health of the president. The president has never hid the fact that he has a health condition. No? He has never hidden this fact, and in fact, he has spoken about it at length. No? Not only during the campaign, but even during his presidency. I think that satisfies for me right now. Unless we go into constitutional. There are constitutional mechanisms.
Yes,
no?
yes.
Yes, yeah. Unless under the Constitution, the cabinet can inquire into the health of the president, and in fact, the cabinet can declare the president as incapacitated temporarily. No. Then then in that case, that would require really an official, finding as to the health of the president.
We'll go over very briefly over some of your bills, Congressman. You have here an which was the title is an act converting the municipality of Balamban in the province of Cebu into a component city to be known as Balamban City. How's that going?
Yes. Well, it is in the committee level. It's moving at the committee level. No, we are just trying to, because of this COVID-19. No, we are trying to get the certifications from the BLGF as to the income requirements. Besides that, it's moving. In the committee level.
And then you have another bill, which is House Bill 01575, an act granting the province a share in the proceeds of real property taxes imposed by component cities, amending Section 271 of RA number 7163, otherwise known as the Local Government Code.
Yes, because under the Local Government Code, I don't know, but it's from by omission. Component cities do not, while they're entitled to help from the provincial government, they're not required to share part of their income. Municipalities, unlike the municipalities, so I think it's only fair that they are also made to share some of the real property.
Kani malipay ang kadaghanan ni Congressman. House Bill number 1578, an act legalizing church annulment or dissolution of certain marriages and for other purposes.
Yes, because this has been a proposal of long standing, because like in the case of Muslims, for instance, under our Sharia law, the state recognizes the validity of their divorces. So I think it is only fair. And it would grant relief to a lot of people who are separated or who want to be separated. It would grant relief if we recognize church, and we're not only referring to the Catholic Church, but also to other churches and sects.
And we're surely going to not get any flack from the Catholic Church from this, because they annulled the marriage.
No, because they
annulled the marriage.
we are in fact recognizing the validity of their annulments.
Another bill, Congressman, is an act amending Republic Act number 10121 by transferring the power to declare a state of calamity in a local government unit to the local chief executive?
Yes, it is a matter of practicality, no? Because I believe that to say whether we are in a state of calamity or not is an executive function. No? And second, practicality. No? You'll have to convene a whole council, no? In the midst of, for example, of a disaster. No? You'll have to convene the whole council for them to declare a state of calamity. I think it would be easier if the mayor or the local government chief executive is given that power.
One final question, because you really have a lot, no? We should maybe dedicate another program for this. But the last one, which I'm sure will affect a lot of people, is House Bill number 4246, an act further amending Presidential Decree number 449, otherwise known as the Cockfighting Law of 1974 as amended, and Presidential Decree number 1802-A in order to rationalize and strengthen the regulation of cockfighting by local governments.
Yes, because this is born out of a controversy, last year, I think, where people didn't know, no? In fact, in Mandaue, in a regular cockfight authorized by the local government unit, the police started raiding and then arresting people. No? So there was quite a controversy. So I think I said, let's rationalize all these rules. And now it's moving because in the committee level, technical working group has been formed to thresh out all these problems.
So usik Mayor, kaning Congressman, daghang kayo ning kuan, no? You have a lot of bills, an act abolishing the travel tax, and then these are really actually several pages, but
maybe some other time we can talk about all of these.
Next time. So we'd like to thank our very own Deputy Speaker, Congressman Pablo John Garcia. Thank you very much, sir, for spending the hour with Republika. Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. No, I should thank you because not only was I able to share my views, on a lot of issues. I learned a lot from you, and particularly about media monopoly and possibly leveling the playing field in political advertisements, which are matters which I promise really to pursue, and to initiate discussion in Congress. Thank you very much, Eric, and much luck to your program, Republika.
In regards to nung Pabling and to the family, to the entire Garcia family, Godspeed, stay safe, muna gitawag ampo, amping, alisto. So,
daghang salamat.
And with that, dyan po nagtawawakas ang ating programang Republika. Ito po si Erik Espina, palaging nagsasabi, magmasid, makialam, higit sa lahat ay manindigan. Dahil wala pong magmamahal sa Pilipino kung hindi ang Pilipino. Daghang salamat, maayong gabi, kaninyong tanan.